Okay, so obviously 2020 is a very I don't know what word to use anymore for this year. I'm sick of using the word, I don't know, unprecedented. That's one of the biggest words that everybody uses. Unprecedented is different, but what you guys probably have different words for this year or this pandemic or this crisis. It would be interesting to know. Like so obviously in the UK they're constantly using unprecedented or whatever. I'm just so sick of hearing it. I don't even want to say it anymore. But like, for example, in Italy, Nurhan, like when are there constant words that are used to describe the pandemic?
I mean, there are a lot of words that they use to describe the pandemic. So yeah, pandemic, coronavirus. They also use like strange year. I think they are like words that are more or less used everywhere. And what's so funny is today I tutored one of my students, and we did like a conversation. And I asked her, one of the questions of this conversation was like, how did you feel like during 2020? What is this year for you? And she was like, this was a strange year for me. I've never lived in a year like this before. And then the conversation went on about the different aspects of 2020. But yeah, I mean, just like strange year, unprecedented as well. Yeah, it's just like emphasizing the fact that we've never lived something like this before.
I mean, that actually brings me on to the question of like, what was everyone's first reaction when the first cases came into their country? Like honest answers now, because I know a lot of people are like, there's going to be a variety of answers, and it depends on what country you're from. You're probably going to give a different answer. So just like, I don't know if anyone wants to jump in here. Like, what was your first reaction?
I was super I was in denial, but thinking I was smart. So I was just being this super pragmatic medic, being like, yeah, it's just a flu. It's gonna get over, we're gonna get a few cases. It's like the flu. What are we making so much of a deal out of it? And then, started being acting a bit less proud as the numbers were going up and up. But really, initially, my family, my parents, they were like, yeah, that seems dangerous. It's gonna be a bit weird. It's gonna be crazy. And I was like, yeah, okay, it's fine. It's just a flu. It's nothing unprecedented. And it ended up being a bit unprecedented.
So like a bit, I don't know where Anas went. So I guess like in denial, I suppose. Barak, what about you? In Germany when the first cases were coming?
Actually, I was very early, very aware of the problem, because I saw the numbers in Asia, and I saw the really fast increasing numbers at the beginning in Europe. So I was really aware of the problem, but this was just theoretical. Like in practice, nothing changed in my life. So like there was this confrontation between the knowledge, okay, there is a threat, but in practice, like everyone was behaving the same. And yeah, but after some weeks, I think all of us got the experience that some things changed also in practice.
And what about you, Nurhan? Because Italy was hit hard. Well, I kind of still is, but I remember like the case rate went. So Italy was like a headliner in the UK as being one of the worst places, especially in like the smaller rural areas.
Yeah, I mean, I do remember the first time I heard about the first cases in Italy. I wasn't in Rome. I was in the city of my university because I was there for exams. And I remember being in the house there. I was also alone there because I had to also, rehearse and stuff. So what happened is that I was in the living room and I had the news on the whole night. and people just like started there. The news were only about the coronavirus. And I remember I was semi-sleeping, and I remember waking up traumatized, because it was, yeah, they were like unprecedented times, but the way they were talking about the coronavirus, and the first, because the people who brought it was here in Italy, there were like a couple of Chinese people who were an old couple. They were here for a tour, and they discovered that they had coronavirus, and the first cases were registered in Rome, my city. So it was a little bit traumatized, waking up to this news. And every channel you turn, they were talking about the same thing. And the government was also reassuring people and telling, everything is under control. But it was traumatized at the beginning. I was in denial as well, because I was thinking about the exams. I was like, I have to pass the exam. I don't care what's going to happen tomorrow.
There's like a virus on your doorstep, and then on top of it, you've got to revise for your exam. That's so typical of you. Like, you're like, what? Oh, is the world is crashing? Oh, it's fine. I need to complete my exam first, and then afterwards, I'll deal with that. That's so typical. But that is the reality, though. Like, people's lives are not going to stop. We still need to continue, and I think that was like a big lesson. Anas, I'm going to ask you the same question after jumping back in. We're basically asking each other just what was our first reaction to when the first case hit the country.
Yeah. To me, I was trying to find a memory linking the newly emerged virus to something from my past. Some of us may remember SARS, bird flu, swine flu, and MERS, to some extent at least. And I thought that maybe we're dealing with something similar to this. But as the pandemic caused by the virus started to accelerate, another memory was brought back, and this time from history. It's been almost exactly 100 years since the Spanish flu, another virus that devastated Europe and many other parts, occurred. And I tried to think what it must have felt to go through that as a population when they didn't have access to the information that we have today, and couldn't possibly know to what extent this affected humanity. So I think those two were the main things that came to mind, at least.
See, I didn't even know the Spanish flu thing happened until I saw those black and white photos coming out on the internet of like women who had bin bags covering their head, dressed like they were dressed normally, but there were like these viral images going out of like all of the same posters that we've been seeing today, like wear your mask, social distance, all of those same posters. It was crazy, but it was like a vintage movie version of everything that we're experiencing now. Yeah. So to be honest, like I was clueless to previous pandemics because it's never really affected us in the UK. I mean, bird flu, and like there was something to do with cows as well. But like obviously, I haven't really kept up with. I guess you don't need to, because you think that'll always happen to an animal, or it's not really going to be on a human scale. But I think that's like quite interesting. Honestly, in terms of my first reaction when cases came, actually, I already prepared myself. Like I took it quite seriously when I first heard about Wuhan. And not as Barak said, like not in practice, but in theory, like I was mentally preparing for it. And to be honest, in all that we've experienced as young people in the last decade, for me, this was just another thing, because like there's been wars, there's been crazy presidents, there's been like the world is like not normal. The world is like at a tipping point already. I know this sounds really negative, but like I feel like growing up in this environment where you feel like the world is in like a cooking pot and it's about to explode, literally. Like growing up in this climate, it's like for me, I was just so desensitized that anything could hit me, and I would just be like, okay, this is just another thing, you know. And so I personally didn't feel like shocked. I think the only shock was when I had to like wear gloves and a mask to the supermarket to get eggs. Like that was when it actually hit me, because I was like, okay, this is real. But mentally, when I first hear about the cases, I was just like, okay, this is like we've seen wars, we've seen bloodbaths, we've seen so much as young people growing up that, like, to me, I was just like, you know, whatever happens, happens, you know. But yeah, I don't know what anyone thinks about that and whether they felt the same.
Yeah, maybe that's because we're so connected again, that we are able to know what's happening in every part of the world. It would have been impossible back in the days when we weren't influenced by social media or had access to instant news. I read just the other day about the worst year in history. Basically, it was there were some researchers that arrived to the conclusion that 536 Anno Domini was the worst year in history. Bubonic plague, economic stagnation. What else did it? Climate change due to a volcanic eruption that lowered the global temperature and led to many years of destroyed crops. And I guess all people living in the different part of the world felt different things, but we feel it more due to our connectivity and our ability to access information. So imagine if they had Instagram back then, how they would have felt. Like volcanic eruption, bubonic plague, economic thing.
It would be like a selfie, like, hey guys, I'm in front of the volcano right now. It's like, yo, get me views, get me likes. It's not, we shouldn't be laughing, but you know, yeah.
Regarding Anna's point, I wouldn't even say, like, I would go more advanced on the point of connection. I would say that the type of news, like the negative news and negative information, is way more attractive to people to consume, and because of this we feel like we are in a whole negative world, while actually there's also a lot of good things happening, but it wouldn't be like worth to mention it in the news. So I guess it's not just connection, but also the appealing effect of negative information.
Yeah.
Do you think that's changed? Because I think now there's well, okay, Nurhan, you're shaking your head. I'll come back to you in a second. But the reason why I'm asking whether that has changed is because all people are begging for now is positive news, because they're physically locked down, isolated with their phone, and like the phone is just spitting out negative news. I don't know, Nurhan, what do you think? Because you were shaking your head.
Well, I think that it depends on which media outlet you look at. There are some, like for example, here in Italy, I was seeing just like a documentary about this the other day, and it depends on the narrative and the messages that media outlets want to send. And there are certain articles written by certain media outlets that are just like pure psychological terrorism. That's what they called it here, psychological terrorism, because what they do is to, they want to attract people to read their articles. So the more they scare people, the more they put attractive negative titles, the more they reach people, and this what happens here. Like there are very, very famous media outlets. That's what they do every day, just like negative titles to attract people and to scare people, while the article could also contain non-authentic informations, and it was just like to put fear and to terrorize people. And I think that, as I said before, it hasn't changed because it depends on the narrative of the media outlets that would like to transmit.
I do agree with Nurhan, and I think it's a very valid point that you made, Maria, that like people should be now looking for good news, especially because most of people are already in lockdown and kind of stuck with what they have. But I do think people are still, or a lot of people are still weirdly attracted by negative news. I don't know. I feel like it's something that you have, maybe because it's more sensational, because it feels more new. Whereas maybe the good stuff you can make it up yourself. I don't know why this tendency that people have. I know that I personally really try to stay away from it, because to me it's just too much. Like I've officially just banned and avoided any massive, all the super sensational COVID-related news. I'm like, nope, I'm not listening to it.
You know that meme with that woman? She's like, block her internet, block her internet, block her WhatsApp, block her. I lost Nadia. She's like, block her.
Did it reach the UK?
It's reached everywhere, man.
Reached Sweden, everywhere.
She's such a queen.